Welcome back to Muscular Dystrophy Warrior. Just like last video, a moment of silence for all the fallen warriors who sadly lost the battle to muscular dystrophy. Sending prayers to all those families who have lost someone with muscular dystrophy as well. So for this video, you guys, I'm wrapping up my life story. So if you guys been keeping up on my content, I have posted part 1 of my life story, living with muscular dystrophy, part 2, living with muscular dystrophy, focusing on my teenage year, high school, middle school years. First part was focused on the early childhood, my diagnosis, elementary school and so on and stuff. So this is part 3, which I'm gonna be talking about, during what happened after high school. I started going to college and talk about my mental health and talk about the present and what are my goals for right now, the present time and stuff. But I'll start the video off with before I started college. So before I started my first semester at my local community college, which is called Fresno City College, FCC for short, I had to register for classes, obviously. But since I have a disability, I have to get accommodation to help me succeed in school, in my classes and stuff. So before I went to the Disabled Student Program Services, DSPS program, with my counselor and stuff, and to set up accommodations and stuff. So I registered for classes. From what I remember, I registered for a career class because I didn't, honestly, guys, I did not know what I wanted to do. I did that, then register for, I think, math class, English class, Spanish class, you know, easy class, Spanish class. Obviously, I speak both languages, so it wasn't that complicated. I needed to pick something from that section. Each section, you have to pick a class. You have to get enough credits to, transfer, graduate, in that section. So Spanish was the only foreign language that was like I could pass this. So obviously math, English, the career class. So on. So we did the accommodation and I asked, obviously I need assistance using the restroom. I asked how would that work, because in middle school and high school, obviously you have an aide, that helps you use the restroom whenever you need it, but that they told me like the harsh reality that there's nobody to assist you using the restroom. Imagine you go from, having an aide in elementary school, middle school, high school, until college, they don't offer that, which I feel like kind of, I feel like they should offer that, because it's like you need that, that's a combination as well, obviously you can't hold not going to the restaurant, it's something you need to do, you just can't like hold it like, oh, I'll hold it until the end of the day. Obviously you can't do that. So that was an obstacle throughout my whole college, throughout my whole Fresno City College time, when I was at my local community college, Fresno City College, that was an issue. But luckily I lived a few minutes away, not so like 10, 15 minutes away. So my mom always had to come and help me. So this was an obstacle we faced all, all the semesters, the restroom issue. Transportation issues as well, because they're obviously when you go to elementary school, you have transportation, the bus picks you up, the famous yellow bus picks you up and stuff like that, but over there you needed your own transportation. Luckily, fortunate enough, I have a handicap van with ramp and stuff. But imagine if I didn't have that, transportation would be hard. I feel like the restroom issue and the transportation issue are some of the reasons students with disability don't, continue their higher education after high school, restroom, then they don't have transportation. I feel like that's a complex. I mean, yeah, I know they have online guys. I know they have online classes, but it's not the same, because all you do is stare on a computer, there's no, you know, in person feels different because online you're just on the computer the whole class. There's no interaction with anybody. You don't see other classmates and stuff. So yes, they have that option, but obviously people with a disability, they want to be in person, be on campus rather than be at home with their computer and taking online classes. Might as well stay home, if that was like a solution, might as well stay home because it's like you're at home taking classes. But for me, it's better in person. Then after I registered all this, they did an orientation for the DSPS program. So I asked a different counselor to see if maybe there was, you know, a different opinion, but strictly they gave me the same answer. They don't, they don't have this accommodation. I call it accommodation. They don't have this need. Obviously, you need to use the restroom. The transportation, I mean, I get it. Like it's college, everybody drives. I get that part, but the restroom, I feel like that needs to be something colleges needs to change. You know what I mean? So August of 2017 was my first day of college. I was not nervous. I was honestly excited to be there. To be honest, I never thought I would be going to college, because it's a lot harder for someone to attend college with a disability. So I was like, I was happy to be there, never thought I would be, in a college campus, and stuff like that. It was like exciting because it's like, never thought you would, I never thought I would be there, stuff attending school, classes and stuff. So yeah, it was an exciting time. First day, first class was in the morning. Then yeah, it was my career class in the morning, and then after my career class, my math class was next, and I didn't need to move anywhere to a different classroom. It was in the same classroom, so I just stayed there. While the rest of my classmates, left. I stayed. And fortunate enough, my good friend Victor had the same math class as me. So, I knew he was going to be in college, but I knew we were going to both take different classes. So it was nice to see someone that I knew, and stuff. So then another issue, the first day is always an issue. And throughout the semester, parking issue. Yes, you guys, parking issue is an issue over there. Yes, they have handicap parking, but there's not a lot of them, there's very few and stuff. So finding a parking is hard. While you're looking for parking, everybody's looking for parking, especially handicap parking. There's a lot of cars parking the handicap. You have to wait to see if, one of the cars gonna leave. Sometimes they're not gonna leave. So looking for parking is complicated. Yeah, it's very complicated. I think everybody deals with the parking issue, not just people with disability in college, and stuff like that. So it was an issue finding parking, but we always managed to make it work. Always, we're parked like at the, you know, where the close to where the handicap, where you when it says no park, those lines that are right there. That's where the ramp goes. Where the person, you know, gets out the car. So we were parked behind the other car who was parked, and we just put the ramp down. And I would just, head to class. My mom would just, because our ramp, we click a button and the ramp goes in and out. We don't have to do it manually. So once I got off, she would click that and then already she drive home, wherever my mom, if she needed to run some errands. So I would just go head to class and that really worked, and stuff. But sometimes we did find parking, luckily. So yeah, that was another issue I had. Then elevator issues. One of my classes was upstairs. Obviously, I can't click the elevator button. So my counselor, they had someone from the disabled student services office, come and click the button. But the issue there was sometimes, sometimes they were already there, before I got there, and sometimes they were not there, because they were doing something in the office and, time went by, and stuff. But sometimes I would ask someone, walking by, can they click the elevator button? But there were certain areas that there's obviously no student passing by, like nobody, you know. Sometimes I would find a classmate, when I had a class upstairs, I'll be like, can you click the elevator? And they would do it, but sometimes like, there's nobody there walking in that area. The elevator area, honestly, there's not many students walking by because there's obviously, you know, they don't really have classes upstairs, a lot of students, certain times of the day, you'll see a lot of students go heading to class upstairs, and sometimes you won't. There's some days that there's more students. And yeah, so some days are more students in that area and some days are not, it depends on the day, honestly. So my first semester, those were some of the things that happened during my first semester, fall semester of 2017 and stuff. Then I obviously passed all my classes except math class. I failed that one. So I went into 2018, spring of 2018. I took another English class. What else? Spanish class. Uh, Math. I think just I took three because I felt like four classes were too much. And during that, at some point during the spring semester, I thought of dropping out, honestly, you guys. The reason was because I was struggling with math because I've never been good with math, honestly. You know, I failed my algebra class, like, and from in high school was like they were like divided into two parts. Part A was the first part of the algebra, part two was the other part of, the rest of the material that you need to learn for algebra class. I passed part A barely with a C. I got a D in part B, but I was 5% from getting a C. So, like you guys can see, I have not been that well, with math. Obviously, I failed geometry junior year, and I had to retake it like during summer school. So I still was having struggles, I still in this math class, it was the same deal, part A, part B, part C. I passed part A with a B or an A. Then part B, I failed. And if you failed, you had to go to a different class, because you didn't move on. It was like you pass, you move on to the next part, you fail, you have to find a new class. So I did. I think from what I remember, I think I switched two classes. I failed math, like I said, and stuff. I failed math, honestly. Like I said, I failed part A, I passed, part B, I failed. So I need to find a new math class. And then I went to, yeah, then I think I switched an English class from what I remember and stuff. Yeah, I think I did. I don't really remember what happened. No, I think I just ended up with two classes that semester. Yeah, yeah. If it's honestly, guys, I don't really remember a lot of what classes I took. Most of the things I don't remember. I'm trying to remember. But from what I remember, like I only, I didn't take math, and I took a Spanish class, an English class, psychology class. So it was just three, that class. But my Spanish and psychology was like a short-term class, It wasn't like the whole semester and stuff. So yeah, then 2018, I took another math class and stuff. Yeah, I took another math class, thought I could pass this time, and I failed again. But I passed all the other classes, which was English, Spanish. What else? Don't remember. I think that was English, math, and Spanish. It was three. So I ended up just taking two at the end of during that semester. I started with three classes, but I ended up just, taking two because I didn't pass the other math class, and stuff like that. So I didn't pass, but my English class and my math class were the only classes I was taking. My Spanish class was, like I said, a short-term class, so I didn't have to be there, the whole semester and stuff. And then, like I said, I failed math again. I passed all my classes. Then we go into spring 2019, which, from what I remember, I was about to miss a semester because they were going to do surgery, on my feet, and stuff. So I was going to be out for about a few months. So spring semester, I was not going to be there, wasn't going to go. But at the end of the day, I dropped all my classes, but then, my doctors were, my pulmonologist told the doctor was going to do the surgery, there was too risky, with my respiratory, not being that great anymore. It's stable, but not that great. So that's why we didn't do the procedure. We didn't go on with the procedure. Then I had to go back and register for classes. Luckily, I found the same class that I need to take, different time, but same professor and stuff. And during 2019, spring 2019, I took a communication class, and stuff like that. And in that class, you had to work with other classmates, my professor, assigned everybody's group, and stuff. So I mean, I enjoyed that class. Honestly, I think me and my classmates were the only group from the class, that was talkative. Honestly, we always talked about different things, I mean, we were the only, everybody else was more focused on the work. I mean, we messed around, messed around. Yeah, we messed around, but we always found a way to get the work done at the end of the day, But it was a good experience, I got to meet other people, work with other people. So obviously I worked with them like all semester long, Yeah, I mean, yeah, we had to do group projects, but the problem with the group projects was, we had a certain amount of time to finish the project, present the project. So it was, let me see, like it was four of us. We started six of us in the group. One of them, she dropped out. So it was just four of us. And then we had to, obviously, all of us had to present the project. So the issue there was like we needed to split how much time we all talked, which was hard. But that was always our issue. We're like, what if we take too long? One person takes too long talking and stuff. And we were like, how we're gonna do this. But yeah, it was a fun class, honestly, and stuff. I recommend you guys take it if you guys are in Fresno City College. I don't know if every college does it like that, but I enjoy, working with other classmates, socializing with other classmates, you spend the whole semester with your same group, and stuff. But like I said, we were the only one that were talkative. Everybody else was more focused on work. We messed around a little, but we always got the job done at the end of the day. We always found a way to finish the work, you know. We always did great on our presentations. You know, we never had an issue. We never went over the limit. I feel like the time limit we had and stuff. Then 2020, fall of 2020, one more math class to go. They changed the rule because when I started, going to college, at Fresno City College, you know, and stuff, they wanted me to, like, I needed to take several math classes until you got to the college level, math class. But the rule changed in 2020, saying that all the students didn't need to take all the math classes to get to they didn't have to take several math classes, all they were requiring was one math class, which was the college level, which is statistics, not calculus, statistics. Same thing with English. I took like the easy English class, then I started leveling up, took the easy one, then I started going with a little bit harder and harder until I got to the college level. So the rule changed for English as well, I didn't have to take all the English classes. All I had to do was pass the college level English class, and I was good. You pass that, you don't have to worry about English, the rest of your college years, or even if same thing with math, you pass math class, statistic class basically, and you don't have to take any more math classes. For me, it was like a relief. I was like, I got it. I only need one more math class and I don't have to deal with it anymore. So that fall semester, since they told me I just needed one math class, I was like, I won't take English that semester. I'm like, I want to focus on math and stuff. Yeah, I was like, I want to focus on math and stuff. Yeah, like I said, I wanted to focus just on math. So I took a Spanish class, English, math class, and then I took forgot what the other class was. But the funny thing, you watched movies in that class, and no, you did not watch, no action, no horror movie, no Hollywood movies. You would watch like classic movies, you know, and then you have to write like a paper, not like a small essay, trying to talk about what the movie, like what it's reflecting. Every movie, like, had a message, some had like very deep messages, about mental health, race, and stuff. Like every movie had like something, you needed to pay attention, find what's the meaning behind the movie, They were classic movies, some were black and white, some were 70s, 80s, more 60s or 70s, But each class we had to watch a different movie, then write a paper about it. Like it wasn't like all those movies had like something significant, a certain topic that they were trying to persuade, So I took that class, and what else did I think that's it. That's all I took. And math class was another class that I had to work in a group. I had to work with other classmates, which it was for me was cool. I thought I was the only one struggling with math. And my classmates that I worked with, they struggled, with math as well. It was rough. Statistics, I know statistics, you use a calculator, but still it was rough out there. All of us were struggling, when one of us missed, and stuff. When one of us missed class, the other one would like let us, you look at their notes and write down. I missed a couple of classes, I think. So I asked my classmates which of them, came to class, because some of them were like, oh, I didn't come that day, but let me ask ask, so and so. Sometimes we were like three, it was like, let me see, two, like five of us, and sometimes three of us didn't go. So one of them, we asked two classmates that went like, hey, did you? Sometimes we all had to take turns, you seeing the other class or classmates' notes, because it was like, they would let me use it first. They're like, you can use it first, or sometimes I'll be like, I have that part, you can use mine. I just need second part, because I only have part of it, I don't have the whole note. So yeah, it was good, but that math class, I'll say, like, yeah, I work with a lot of classmates, not just, sometimes we would work with different classmates and stuff. And yeah, but college was more like better experience as it in high school. You know how I wasn't the most talkative during high school. College really, helped me open up a little bit more. I wasn't like worried about like being scared, being like, oh, I don't want to talk to anybody, any of my classmates that are, the opposite sex, and stuff. But in my math class, I had two classmates, that were from the opposite sex, but it was always like we became good friends, and stuff. One of them, I became good friends, It's like that day we switched. Yeah, we switched class. No, no, we switched, groups. We had to work with other people. So I made a friend in that group, and stuff. I mean, she was a football fan, so obviously I think I had a Niner sweaters. She was like, "Oh, you football fan?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I asked her like what team she went for. She was like, "Dallas." I'm like, "Dallas." I'm like, "No, but yeah, she went for Dallas." I'm like, "Niner and Dallas fan." So yeah, I mean, we only worked that time, but we always were like talk before class, started because we were always waiting, for my professor to open the door, so we talked about football and stuff. And yeah, and that was like it was like a friendship, nothing else, it wasn't like when I was in high school that I was scared like to get to know someone, as a friend, how you talk to classmates and stuff. And yeah, so yeah, we talked outside of class a couple of times. And plus like if I ever like start up, being like I said, if you guys haven't seen part two, I talk about like I was always worried about talking to someone from the opposite sex, catching feelings, and stuff like that. But in this case, it was more like a friendship. Obviously, like she looked close to my age, but she was like a lot older than me. So obviously that was not gonna work. So, I prefer to stick with someone who's close to my age if I had developed feelings, and stuff. I think she had like a 6-year-old daughter, but she didn't live with dad anymore. So she was a lot older. So yeah, we became good friends, I'll say. It was just good friends, Then I met another person. She was like close to my age, but we became good friends as well. I mean, I still in contact with this person, but yeah, this was a person that I worked with like she was part of my group like the whole semester, so she was close to my age and stuff, but we became good friends, I'll say, as well. You know, I thought I was the only one who struggled with math. She struggled with math, so we were always like the ones that were struggling besides our other classmates, So we decided to make a group chat, and stuff. So we were all like message each other like, oh, you know how to do this? Because some of the math questions were hard, honestly, guys, and stuff. They were hard, honestly. So we did a group chat. So we would always help each other. Like sometimes when I found once I got the answer right, because we would do our homework online, it would tell you, oh, the answer is wrong, it would mark red, like a red box, that's wrong. And sometimes once I figured out the math, I would screenshot it and send it to all my classmates, that we were in the group chat, hey guys, I figured it out. this is how you do it. And then they would ask, oh, how you did it, this and or sometimes they would figure one out, and I'm like, how do you guys get that right answer? Because I'm having a rough time out here with that. And sometimes we all were stuck, and we were like, we just have to wait until we see each other during class to ask the question because we are not doing that well and stuff. Ask our professor. Then obviously they had a student aid, so and stuff. So professor would help us out, like, cause it was like a 2 hour class because they wanted our professor was a great professor. She wanted all her students to pass. That was her goal, like all the time. Honestly, I was from at the end of the semester, I was the only one who passed the math class. Honestly, my classmates that I would work with, didn't pass. Even the two people that I talked about right now, they didn't pass either. They were like, no, did you pass? I'm like, yeah, they almost passed, but they ended up like me in high school, being so close, but didn't get enough points. During the final, that was where you were, you know, they allowed you to use some of your notes, not all the notes, but certain notes were allowed to you during the final. So the final was more like to give points, get as many correct answers, and hopefully those points will achieve, they will achieve your passing grade. But the good thing here is like if you failed like the first test but passed the second, they'll put the your new test, your new test score, and they will replace your other score, your lowest score with your best score. So that helped me because I got first test I failed, and it was looking dark, meaning that it was looking like I was gonna fail again until the second test. I got a C, and then from there, they replaced the D with a C. So I got a C like all on all my tests. The final I kind of think an A or a B because some of the what you may call it, some of the question were like from the beginning of the semester. So I kind of knew the answers already. So and stuff. So it was like, yeah, I ended up passing. Then we go to spring of 2020. I only went to in-person classes from January all the way to March of March. I don't remember what the day was because COVID hit. We didn't know what to expect, which sucked for me because I'm like, the good thing when when COVID happened, most of my classes I already had turned everything in. So basically I didn't have to do anything that semester. Yeah, because one of my English class, my professor was like, you only need to do the last assignment, a couple of times, because you already turned in your essay. You did this, you did that. It's like you just need the rest of some of the things, but you can just hang on tight, because you know and stuff. So yeah, it sucked, because first I went to, I think I had yeah, I had a same thing. I had an English. That was my last English class. No, wait, that was an English class that I had that I started in person. Yeah, I started in person, then I went you know, to once March hit, we had to go online, but it was towards the end of the semester, because March, April, May is the last day of the semester, last month of the semester. So I just, it was almost, we were mid-semester. So when COVID hit, so we ended up being online for the rest of the semester and stuff. So I was home, which sucked. I was so used to going. I would always have to wake up in the morning during my class. But the only, thing that I liked, like I was I was not rushing, to finish breakfast, to finish my lunch, and head back to class, or worrying about the restroom issue because I could just use the restroom. You just turn your camera off, then just go. I mean, keep it on because some professor were like, "Can you please keep it on?" Or some were cool about it, as long as you paid attention or answer questions. You were good. So 2020 was 2020 fall 2020. My last semester. Yes, you heard it right. Oh no, wait. 2020 was one of my final semesters. I had to take online classes again. This time it was from the beginning all the way to the end of the semester, which was hard because I would sometimes use tutoring and I had to use tutoring on online, which sometimes, there was a lot of people entering tutoring, which the system were stopped working. So that was an issue and stuff. But I managed to pass on my class. I think I had what I had. I don't remember what classes I took. I know I took like a culture class, Hispanic culture class, I think, in 2020. Oh no, I took political science my final semester. Yeah, I took political science my final semester, biology, and what else? Spanish class. Yeah, those were just my last three classes. Yes, 2020, I remember I took a Spanish class, Hispanic culture class, then something to do with the ocean. I think something about biology, but it had to do with the ocean. So those were my three classes that I took 2020, 2021. I know I took a biology class. Oh no, 2020 I took, yeah, from around 2021 I took political science, which I could skip that class and take it at Fresno State, the California State University that's in my hometown of Fresno, California, or I could take it there. My counselor was like, some prefer to take it like, you know, at Fresno State or at different universities and stuff. So they prefer that. So 2021, I took political science, biology, and a Spanish class. In 2020, I took the ocean, like the biology, but it had to do with ocean. I took the Spanish class and my Hispanic culture class, I think. Then 2021, obviously, like I said, I took political science, biology, and Spanish. So that was my final semester. If I passed all those classes, I could graduate, you know, in the spring. Oh, no, it was spring already. My bad. Yeah, it was spring. So if I finished at the end of the semester, I could graduate. So I ended up passing. I did all the So that semester, once, I asked my counselor what did I need to do if I felt like I'm close to graduating. She's like, she checked and she's like, yeah, you have to do this and that. If you're gonna transfer to Fresno State, AKA California State University. I was like, yeah. So first, you have to sign a few things, saying that if they can check, the administration at Fresno City College can check, if you're eligible to graduate that year. And then I got an email saying, congrats, you're eligible. Then so the next part was apply to Fresno State, which I did. And you have to wait for acceptance. Then graduation came along. There was an issue with graduation because graduation wasn't supposed to happen because of COVID. You know, things were not back to normal fully, you know, and stuff. They were not back to normal fully. So it was like students were like doing a petition, So because I was in a Facebook group that had to do with my college, that's where, you would upload, try to find your books, sell your textbooks and stuff, ask questions about certain classes, who should I take it, who should I take this class with and stuff like that. So they were like, a lot of students wanted a graduation because the students from 2020 didn't get a graduation. So at the end of the day, the administration were like, yeah, we can have it. So they had the 2020 class and 2021 class all together, you know, at the graduation ceremony, but it felt great, you know. After a lot of struggle, 5 semesters, 5 years, 5 semesters, a lot of ups and downs, like you guys saw, but a lot of good things, you know. Like I said, I had 2 classes that I felt like I made you know, met good people in those classes, you know, and stuff like that. And, my fear of, of that issue that I was always dealing with in high school, that went away, because I met 2 people, that became good friends, nothing else, and stuff. So, yeah. So it felt great to finally graduate. The rescue issue, the transportation issues, it felt great like passing. Then 2021 again, roll around the corner, August of 2021, fall semester at Fresno State. Online semester over in-person semester was an issue because I could go in person, but with COVID, having muscular dystrophy, respiratory problems, obviously you don't want to risk it, getting sick, getting COVID, whatever, so I decided not to. I mean, I had all the vaccines, but because Fresno State, my college, my California State University here in my hometown, Fresno State, for those that don't know what's never heard of Fresno State, but you're a sports fan. If you're a Raider fan, you had Derek Carr. Derek Carr is played for Fresno State. Then, if you want to go back a little further, my fellow Houston fans, Houston Texan fans, David Carr played there, and my fellow Green Bay Packer fan, your one of your best receivers you ever had, Davante Adams, played for Fresno State, then played for the Raiders, and now he's playing for the Rams. Derek Carr played for the Saints. So if you're a sports fan, you already know a little bit of Fresno State because you had star players. Also, if you're a basketball fan, Paul George, aka PG-13, played for Fresno State as well. Kawhi Leonard played for San Diego State, you know. So Fresno State and San Diego State are rivals. So Paul George and Kawhi went at it a couple of times, against each other. Then before I forget, my fellow baseball fans, fellow New York Yankee fans, Aaron Judge played for Fresno State. So I mean, I'm saying this, if you're a sports fan, you kind of heard of Fresno State. But if you're not, a sports fan, Fresno State, aka California State University, is located in Fresno, California, and stuff. So you guys can look it up if you want to know more about Fresno State and stuff. So I took that semester online. I took a translation class because when I graduated from Fresno City College, I had decided a couple of semesters that I wanted to be a translator since I speak both English and Spanish, and sometimes they use translators. So I decided to get a degree in translation, and stuff. In Spanish, they said the degree is Spanish, but it's more like I need to get certified, if I wanted to be a translator and work in that aspect and stuff. So I took Fresno Tech, I took a translation class, a medical translation class. I took that. I think I do a geographic class, something about like the earth and stuff. That was my second class. Then what else did I take? Oh, I took a Portuguese studies class, I need to pick a foreign language. I was like, I want to try something new, Portuguese and stuff. So those were my 3 classes that I took that semester. Then spring semester at Fresno State 2022, first and only semester in person. Yeah, but even though I didn't go on campus in 2021, I still was able to, buy season tickets to the Fresno State Bulldogs game. football games. I went to all the home games because when you're a student, you get a discount on all the home games. So which it was like 6 home games. So I got to experience, going to a college football game because I already had gone to high school football game because my friend Felicia was a cheerleader. So I got to go to that. Then I got to go to a professional football game, bang bang Niner gang. Got to see the Niners twice. Uh, Thanks to Make a Wish, I was able to go to a Laker game. Yeah, in 2017, like when I was in my senior year, I got to go to see a Laker game. Shout out to Laker Nation all day, every day. So I got to see a Laker game. Now I got to see my local university, aka Fresno State, aka California State University, and they ended up winning the championship in January of 2022 and stuff. So it was nice. I got every game I went, they won except one game. But it was nice to see like the difference between a high school game, a professional game, and a college game. Oh, it's different vibe, I'll say. I also got to go to a basketball game, but our basketball team is not very popular, I'll say. Not a lot of fans show up. They used to show up when they were in a different location and stuff, but it was nice to, even though I didn't go in person, I still kind of go to sporting events. I can still go to sporting events now, even though I'm not a student. A lot of fans go that they're not students. So the spring semester at Fresno State was my first and only semester in person. So I took 2 Spanish class. One was grammar, one was like literature. Yeah, literature and stuff. And I ended up switching the literature one because it was a struggle, with that one. So I switched it for translation. Or I forgot what it was, another translation class, but it was like when you use a translator in court, we would have to role play scenarios. One would have to be whatever the court issue was, and the other one had to be a translator. So you had to translate from Spanish to English, and stuff. And after the spring semester, I ended up dropping out, sadly. The reason I dropped out was because muscular dystrophy, was getting harder for me to do things. And I felt like it was more pressure at Fresno State. Obviously, it's a 4-year university. I didn't have enough time to eat, use the restroom. Transportation was an issue because we didn't live that close to Fresno State. My mom had to travel a long drive. It was a lot of issues. So my parents decided that it was best to drop out. And sadly, I had 3 semesters left to graduate. My cousin, she went there. She studied to be a teacher. So she's still not working as a teacher. She still needs to get certified, but she's getting there almost. So I would have graduated with her and stuff. But sadly, I was 3 semesters away and stuff. But when I dropped out, I was okay, because I didn't, yeah, because obviously I didn't go to the fall semester. I was fine. Yeah, I was fine. But then at some point, once the other semester, the spring semester, the spring semester of 2023 started, because when I dropped spring, I was like, I'm fine. It'll be just like a 1 semester off. I felt like, oh, it'll feel like, taking a break. Then spring of 2023 came around, and obviously I started having some mental health issues. You know, I enjoy gaming, watching TV, watching sports, and something about that didn't really fit with me anymore. Mentally, I was not doing that well because like, my mentality was like, what am I gonna do now? Gaming every day, it's not like, that's a pastime. That's not like doing something. Watching TV is a pastime. every activity I do is a pastime. So I'm like, what am I gonna do? I'm so used to going to school, there will be no more, socializing with other students. At Fresno State, sadly, I didn't get to socialize a lot because I was only there for a few classes. So I didn't get to experience like with Fresno City College, that I was there in person, would talk to my classmate, this and that. So that was gonna be hard, social life outside of home, was gonna be non-existent, sadly. And this is the issue for a lot of people with muscular dystrophy or any disability. I mean, because there's a disability that you can be independent, you can go out everywhere without, you just need a little bit of help, but you're more independent. But muscular dystrophy takes that independency away. So some after high school, they lose their social life. And it's not because they don't want to, they want to be home every day. It's like they all have their reason why they don't have transportation. They can't be independent. They need help 24/7 and so on. And so, yeah, I started having mental health issues because it's like, what am I going to do? I won't have social life. I won't do anything. I still talk to certain people, keep in contact with certain people, but it's not the same, with seeing other people, and stuff. So I was like that for a couple of months until it got to a point I was like, I need to get help because this is not taking me anywhere. So I did get help. I went to an appointment. My neurologist is where I see neurology, pulmonology, who else? Who else? Physical, occupational therapy, speech, and stuff. And then a social worker. So I asked a social worker what was going on. That didn't have to do with any issues at home because she asked why did I want to see a therapist? And I told her the reason. And she went and found like a place here in Fresno, California, that they see patients with disabilities and stuff. So she said, make a call. I made a call. Nobody answered. So they said, leave a voicemail. Voicemail. I didn't leave a voicemail. I called again a few hours later. The person at the front desk answered. He was like, I told him that I wanted to make an appointment, what I needed to do. And then they were like, oh, you need to fill this out, do this, and then then give me an appointment. They gave me an appointment 2 months. Yeah, like 2 months after I called. So I started seeing a therapist from 2023 all the way to 2025. And she diagnosed me, my therapist was a great therapist. She diagnosed me with isolation, which is normal, she said. Yeah, I talked about other issues with my therapist, but the main one was she was like, you have isolation, which is normal because it's normal for people, elder people and people with disability to, start feeling isolated because it's like you don't have a social life. You can't go outside because you can't go anywhere because obviously your disability, you can't be independent with, you can be independent with certain disabilities, but in my case, it's like hard, to do all that stuff. So that's why she was like, that's why you get diagnosed. That's why people get isolation and stuff. So yeah, therapy really helped me. My therapist would always suggest, she was like, said she suggested that I need to, you know, stay busy with anything. She like go to window shopping, watch sports, and you say you like sport, watch as many games as you can, game for a little bit, like do several activities, Then I told her that I was doing YouTube. So she would like focus on that, focus on things you enjoy doing, keep yourself busy, keep your mind busy. So my goals at this moment, present time. Now we're gonna focus on present time. The present time, honestly, I just want to focus on creating content, you guys, living life to the fullest, doing things that I enjoy doing, Mentally, I'm in a better place because I did start a YouTube channel and stuff. I'll talk a little bit about that. because right now I'm just talking about my life story. So I'm going each part that I talk on here. I probably will make a video talking about each of these topics that I talked in this video. Make other part focusing on just that topic. Now I'm going back and forth with different topics. So I feel like in a better place now than I was when I dropped out of college. When I started the old YouTube channel, I wasn't in a great place, honestly, you guys. So now it feels great, starting Muscular Dystrophy Warrior, having a presence on social media, on different social media platforms, not just YouTube. It felt great, I have a lot of great ideas how to make more awareness about muscular dystrophy. So those are my goals. That's my mindset at present time, and stuff. But I'm in a better place, you guys. Feel great, better than I was. So this has been part 3 of my life story, living with muscular dystrophy, you guys. I hope you guys have enjoyed my videos about my life story. I hope you guys found it interesting. If you haven't, yeah, I hope you guys liked it. I talked a lot about different things about my life story. I hope it was inspirational. I hope my story was interesting. I hope you guys liked it. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification button, and stay tuned for my future videos that I will be bringing more awareness about muscular dystrophy. Until next